Hello everyone. Hopefully you can hear this okay. It says it's coming up on the stream, so I'm assuming it's fine. This is... Oh, Jesus. I've got myself in the background. Shut up. Right. Give me just a second while I sort out a camera. I tell a lie, I do not have a camera. Right. This thing. Hopefully? No. I did test this before I even went live, but apparently no such luck. It's just black. Okay. No camera, but I'll try it a little bit. How is everyone? Oh, I'm pretty quiet. Okay, let me just increase the gain a little bit. So I usually do it in post. Right, hopefully that's a bit better now. And you can hear me okay. I will wait just to see what people say. But how is everyone? Where are you chatting from? Feel free to throw like a little flag in the chat so I can see where you're coming from. Audio is good now. Excellent. Thank you so much. That is... I'm still new at streaming, so this is super helpful for me. I'm still learning. I'm still learning. Reading, UK. I used to live near Reading. I used to live in Swindon. I live in Manchester now, but I used to live near Reading. Nigeria, Brooklyn. Oh, a friend of mine lives in New York. London. I'm sorry for your I'm sorry for your loss. India, Lisbon, Sierra Leone, Libya, Brazil. I think that means we have somebody from every single continent, and that's really cool. The moon, that's even better. That's a whole new country. Awesome. So, the plan for today, what we're going to do, and sorry, you'll see me do this quite a bit to access some of the other windows on my screen and end up going into that mode quite a bit. I'm going to try once more, see if my phone has decided to be a camera. Maybe. No, still no camera. Okay. Right, I'm afraid in the little, in the bit, like, up here, this is supposed to be my face. I'm not sure why it's not actually showing my face. Will this be recorded? Yes, it will automatically be recorded by YouTube. So you will definitely be able to rewatch this. Not a problem at all. And I might end up cutting it out and showing off some stuff. I'm not sure. Am I going to B-Sides Ahmedabad? I was going to, but I'm not going to be able to make it now. But hopefully in the future, it's definitely on a conference I want to go to. I've got a good friend as well who's from Ahmedabad. He lives in the UK now. But you can give me the lowdown on where to go. Turkey? So cool. Right. So the plan for today. So we're going to start with looking at burp and how I use burp and how I get things set up and I take notes and stuff on the target. I've then set up the Juice Shop CTF. So we're going to take a look at Juice Shop and see kind of this kind of techniques I'm going to use on a real target. I'm going to give you all a bit of spoilers for the next series of videos, which is all about choosing a good target that meshes with your hacking style and one you can actually find bugs on even as a beginner. Then we are going to hack on a real like bug bounty program, and I'm going to show you what I look for in a good bug bounty program, so how I actually choose my targets. Now, when I'm doing a live hacking event, which has been quite a lot of the bugs I found, I tend to just jump on whatever. So, for example, I've been hacking Zoom like in the past few weeks, and I very much don't have like a specific, oh yeah, I think I need private invites, or I want to see X, Y, and Z. So I don't really have that kind of approach. So I'll be showing you how I kind of chaotically pick targets, and how I chaotically actually find vulnerabilities in real software. And I will say my way of hacking is chaotic. If you go on like Jason Haddock's, for example, the man has a flowchart. He has like a bunch of different steps he goes through, and a bunch of different tools. I don't. I just press buttons and find bugs. And actually, one of my most recent bugs, I had a kind of mini argument with the triager about a bottle of water. There you go. But it's cool to see everyone. I saw some other my fellow creators here. I saw Tiberus a few seconds ago. So let's start out by getting up burp. Now, the number one thing people ask me is, do I need to pay for burp, or when should I pay for burp, or I pirated burp. You really do not need to pay for burp. I did an experiment this year and last year of like how long it was until I actually felt like I needed to use burp, like the Enterprise Edition. And I have not found that I have to do it for any of my bugs. I could very easily find a vulnerability without burp pro, and then use the money from that bug to actually pay for it. So you don't need to pay money. You can also use the free app as well, which is OWASP Zap. There is nothing that says like one is better than the other. You can use either, right? A lot of people recommend Kaido as well. I personally like burp because it's probably what I'm just used to. I've always used burp since I like started out from the beginning. So I prefer burp, but certainly like I don't think there's anything wrong with using something else. A lot of people in API testing use Postman, for example. I hate Postman. It is so annoying to use. It is not designed for security testing. I will write my requests by hand in burp. But of course, like there's no correct answer. And I'm looking at the chat here. Lots of hacking with Fiddler rather than burp. Lots of proxies available. I've seen people use man-in-the-middle proxy quite a lot, especially for mobile testing, because it can integrate with other tools really well. I'm not sure I would say like burp has a nicer UI than Zap. Both of them are pretty awful. But I think that's more of like a security testing thing where you're trying to like be everything for every single type of security tester. So I'm going to very quickly go over like what burp is and what the UI is, just in case you're not familiar with it, but if you are familiar, you know, tune out. So this is burp, and essentially it's a proxy where all of your traffic gets sent through burp, and you can essentially inspect it as it's happening. So the first tab here, this is the dashboard. Half of it is an advertisement. You can just close that. Target will show what your browser has accessed by domain name. I'm going to use an example here. If I go to Google, switch off intercept. So the sitemap will show you all of the data by domain name. So this is google.com. You'll notice that I'm actually using this extension here. This is called PwnFox. It is I'll be the first to admit, right, when people start recommending to me this as an add-on, I was like, I don't need Pwn Fox. This is a waste of time. I love Pwn Fox now. I used it in the Hacker 4420 live hacking event. It got me bugs. So I have been like kind of had this changed based on it, but it's called Pwn Fox. It looks like this. I might just grab the link and stick it in the chat as well. Pwn Fox. But the really cool thing about Pwn Fox, if you've never seen it before, is you can essentially use the containers. I'm just going to stick it in the chat. Okay, there we go. So you can essentially use the Firefox containers, but it colors them, right? So if I go to proxy here, and I go to HTTP history, this is a blue tab, so it appears blue here. And then if you go in to Pwn Fox and make a red tab, and you go and do Google here, it will then color these requests red in the HTTP history and in the target tab. So super, super helpful if you're testing any kind of like cross-tenancy, cross-user access control type vulnerabilities. It is a lifesaver, and no, you don't need Pro for it. It is for all versions of BUP. You can use the free version, and that's all I'm going to be using today. I'm not going to be using the Pro. I love this. Literally, I was like, I don't need this. This is not going to. It changed so much about how I hack, and I actually found like 3 vulnerabilities in Zoom just with using this extension. So I could do like cross user testing and cross tenancy testing, and it's completely free. It's fantastic. It is a huge help when you've got multiple accounts you're logged in as. Other things I have set up, you can see I've got Foxy Proxy set up here, but in Pwn Fox I have the Proxify only container tabs. So this isn't using the proxy, this plain one. These ones are using the proxy, and it means that I won't, let's say I have to log into my actual email account, I won't accidentally leak like my cookies or like my session tokens on stream or on videos. But also it just helps reduce the noise so much. Like I can very easily see, okay, that like this is what this is doing and this is why it's good. Right, so other things I have set up. I also have, let's not go onto that tab and show the cookies. You can also, I have this extension which enables you to manage the cookies, so you can see what cookies you've currently got. And you can see I've been testing on Zoom because I've got like a bunch of like logon cookies for Zoom here. Let's have something that maybe I haven't I won't accidentally leak something from Wikipedia. And you can see this has like the cookies in there. This is really helpful when you're testing like anything that has multiple tokens. So Zoom is a great example because Zoom has like these 3 access tokens. They've got their regular authentication token. They've got the ZAC, which is the Zoom access something, which is what your client has access to, and you have another type of session token. I think you have a regular API token as well. So you can have like so many different things in your cookies that it's really helpful just to be able to easily find them. So the way I primarily work is I use the HTTP history, and I do it so the most recent ones come first in the list. I find this is by far the easiest way to take in all the data that a website is sending you and start to kind of see what you're actually impacting, because it's just as easy as you click a button and the like something happens, a request gets sent, and I can very easily then put in my brain, okay, so this is like a request that does whatever. So I find it really easy to start to kind of read that and start to understand it. In something like the target tab, it's a lot more difficult because you've got like, one, a lot more requests, and two, things like these little gear icons don't really help you to actually do your security testing. And the main tool that I use by far is Repeater. So in Burp, on any request you have, you can right click on it and send to Repeater. This is where I spend 90% of my time. I will go in here and just edit the request manually by changing the values in here. Or in the request body. I am very rarely using other tools, scanners like Nuclearly, but also even doing a lot of reconnaissance. My approach to hacking is like feature first. So I'm like, okay, so what features does this application have? How does it work? How does that kind of impact with like other integrations and other services? I'll use an example. I once found a vulnerability in an email client by registering a Shopify email and placing the like the payload in the Shopify like product name, and that was able to cause the vulnerability in the email client because it kind of did like fancy stuff with here's where when you get your deliveries or whatever. So this is primarily what I do. I use Repeater and I just edit things. Now, other things I have open, Logger. So you can see what has actually been sent. There is a good extension called Logger++, which allows you to use regex to search through. I'm actually not going to keep it on because it can be quite it can lag your system a little bit, and mine is already starting to lag. And same with everything else. So same with you can see here I've got a tool that does burp to Frida, that's for mobile testing. I've got InQL, which is a GraphQL scanner, Authorize, which is a tool that can help you find cross vulnerability cross organizations or cross user access control issues like IDORs. I've also got Paraminer, which is a tool that can allow you to, does a bunch of different things, but it essentially allows you to like find more parameters. JSON Web Tokens is one thing I do keep on. It's quite a low impact like to the system, and it essentially just allows you to enter a JWT and then decode it. And I'm lazy, so I would rather do that than I would do the whole paste it into Auth0's website. Turbo Intruder, I don't really use. That's for testing things like race conditions. Now, my like ultimate fangirl moment, right, was when I was at a live hacking event. This is pre-pandemic. And I found this race condition, and I wasn't really sure how the race condition was working. I got mentorship from Sturk about race conditions. And if you don't know anything about Sturk's hacking, he does a ton of race condition bugs. So it was like a really fun kind of approach where I was like, oh my god, I'm being mentored by Sturk himself. Reconnaissance is something I tried for a video. It includes the Web3 stuff. So the, not Web3, wow, the AI stuff. So that adds AI into your recon. Again, I wasn't really a big fan of it. PwnFox and Postman integration. This allows you to export to Postman. This is just the PwnFox doing its thing. Sturk is a lovely person. He really, like, what a genuine guy. The personality he has, like, on his videos is the exact personality he has in real life. Though I will say, for every big hacker I've met and interacted with, none of them have ever been, like, rude to me or, like, unfriendly. So I can, if you ever meet them and you want to ask them questions, they are, like, so cool to speak with. And yeah, that's Stoke Frederick. I think he sometimes uses Stoke, but it's pronounced Sturk because it's got the O with the 2 dots over the top of it. So in terms of what I actually use in like my actual hacking, we're going to use the proxy and the HTTP history and repeater, and that is primarily it. No fancy tools, no complicated recon pipelines. This is all you need to get started. Oh yeah, Ben is also really nice. Now Hamsec, genuine guy. The way he is in videos is exactly how he is in person. And he is always, like, when people are new to the community, he'll be kind of making sure that they get involved. So at a lot of live hacking events, it's some people's very first event, which is amazing. It's so cool to see other people and not see the same faces all the time. But he makes an effort to, like, speak to the people who have never been to a live hacking event and get them talking to the kind of people that have been to a bunch of events, and making sure that people get invites to things like going out for dinner, not just to the event itself. He is such a genuine guy. But again, like, no hacker I've ever met has been, like, rude or, I don't know, like, elitist or anything like that. So that's my kind of hacking setup. PwnFox, cookies. I have one password here, which only shows stuff in my hacking vault. And as you can see, I'm not revealing passwords on stream. Yeah, Shmuel. I actually worked with him as well. I've helped him with an API issue. You wish there were live hacking events in Vietnam. Well, let me put this to you. If there were live hacking events in Vietnam, you wouldn't be able to travel having been invited to one of them. You would be like, you wouldn't be able to travel. Like, you'd just be in your hometown. So you should hope they're not in Vietnam. That way you can travel the world. So yeah, he was telling me about that Zoom desktop bug. It's crazy. I actually haven't seen the Hamsex video, so I'm not sure what people outside know about it yet, but it's a really cool bug. The other person who's very genuine... oh man, my mind's going blank. There are people in the community that will, like, argue on behalf of other hackers. And there were a few people who were, like, going out for bat for other hackers' bugs to the client, being like, hey, you should consider this because of this, this, and this. Any Bug Bash live hacking event in Bug Crowd. I have not been invited to the Bug Bash. However, there is one in Vegas this year. Yeah, a lot of the conferences can be really difficult, especially if you haven't got, like, someone on Twitter yesterday had their had their talk accepted and didn't have enough time to get, like, a visa to go to the US to actually present his talk at DEF CON. He only found out when he looked at the DEF CON program and saw his talk. They never sent him an acceptance, so he couldn't travel at all because he's in China. some hackathons, but it's all in Vietnamese. It's hard. You kind of have an advantage in the sense that Asia is quite a big technical hub, but it tends to be in like China, Japan, rather than Vietnam, which is unfortunate. I know a lot of hackers, though, who live in Bali. Wish there were conferences where you live. You'd be surprised. The conferences I recommend the most are B-sides, because they are like super community focused, super relaxed. And yeah, South Korea has the Meta Bug Bounty program, and they do an event in South Korea. They do an event in Seoul. B-sides are great, and there's a lots of local events with B-sides. Same with DEF CON local groups as well. Also, hi Mr. Freaky Clown. You should buy his book. It's called How I Rob Banks and other such places, other such stories. I can't remember. But it's just a list of, it's just like fun stories about hacking. Canada definitely has B-sides. I think is it Vancouver, I think, might have one? I'm not sure. Cool. Right, let's do some actual hacking. How I Rob Banks and Other Such Places. It's a good book. I've read it. I enjoyed it. I bought it on Amazon. I will definitely come to B-sides Ahmedabad one of these years. At the moment, my health has been terrible, so I haven't really wanted to travel. It's why I'm not really traveling for DEF CON either. Okay, right. So we're going to start out by looking at... Is that the right... Where's my terminal? Oh, I forgot to start it. There we go. So we're going to start out by looking at Juice Shop, just to show you like the kind of process first before we look at a real target, because it will make a lot more sense of like how we're actually going to like look at a real target, and how my brain works as I'm working through a target. Because if we show it on the CTF and then we do it on a real target, you can see how that methodology actually applies to more than just, one target. And hopefully... localhost 3000. Oh, there we go. Cool. Yeah, no problem. The B-sides Ahmedabad people, gave me 2 passes. Unfortunately, I don't have any more I can give out. But it was really kind of them to do that. Unfortunately, I don't have like 5 more passes that they gave me. Oh, this is a good question. How is web API hacking different than web app hacking? Is an API a subpart in web app hacking? Yes. There is nothing special about APIs. APIs are just a type of web application. The only difference between like an API and a web application is that an API returns plain text. And that does mean, because developers think only machines interact with them, they have less security controls, because people tend to put the security controls into the client rather than into the API. And that's really the only major difference. Every single bug that you can find on like a regular web application, you can find on an API, including things like cross-site scripting. Bit more complicated, but it's totally the same kind of targets. There's nothing special about it. Am I going to hunt a real application? Yes. So I'm going to start by showing you a methodology on OWASP Juice Shop, so you can see kind of the steps I go through, and then we'll be looking at the Bug Crowd program on Bug Crowd, because I went to Sajib and I was like, can I hack Bug Crowd on stream? And he's like, yes, but what should I prefer between Burp Suite and Zap? I prefer Burp. That may well be because it is the first one I used, but I definitely prefer like the interface. I feel like I can understand it more. Is it a must to use Postman or Zap? No, Burp can do it. I don't use Postman either. I have not read The Art of Exploitation. That's in my Apple Books app to read. Right. So what do I do the first thing I look at an application? I look at it. You will spend the first hour, 2 hours, 3 hours just playing around with an application. And especially for like the really complicated targets, like something like Salesforce, you have to spend hours learning it. Like sometimes you can kind of work with an app you're already familiar with, and that's great and that's fantastic. But if you want to do like hacking and actually find bugs, you have to understand how it works. Always, 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 first hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, don't jump straight into hacking. Always look and see what on earth is in front of you. Don't run tools, don't try and do subdomain enumerations, don't do reconnaissance. Look, use your eyeballs and look what's in front of you. So what do I see? It's a shop. What can I do? Well, I can click on a product and I can see reviews for a product. I can click and see, okay, that's apple juice, and I can see there's a review for that product as well. We already have in this a potential email address that says admin. So we might go to that, copy, and I'm just going to stick it in my notes. Anything that I think is particularly interesting, I'm just going to copy and save, because I may want to come back to it. And that might be requests, that might be URLs. Often what I'll do is break up a single process into multiple steps. How do you enter the bug bounty program? Do I have to solve some CTS, or can you just go to the program directly? You can go to the program directly, but you either need a web developer background, because you need to know how websites are made, or you need to start with studying web applications and web application vulnerabilities. It's not really possible to go like, I'm going to just start this and just start hacking. How can you transition to pen testing? I would say it's very dependent on your job. So what you might want to do is see whether or not there is scope in your current role to take on more security testing, and see whether or not your line manager would be happy with you potentially having access to like a course or something that can get you started. So I can click on the like, there's a like button here, it doesn't do anything. And here I can see, okay, there's a kind of bonus symbol on there, and there are 2 reviews. Again, we've got 2 kind of comments here from 2 accounts. Now they don't start with like any admin or something like this, so I'm not going to go too much into this. It's like take notes on it, right? And again, actually, this is a good point, right? These hamburger menus, the little menus that give you more advanced options, are the best place to go on a real target, because they are full of like functionality that nobody uses and that nobody has tested yet. So I really recommend going in there. And again, I'm just going to click buttons. That first part, you just want to, see what you can do. I can't do 6 times 9 off the top of my head. 54. Am I dumb? Oh no, it's because order of operations, isn't it? So it's 3 times 9, which is 18 plus 3, 21. Am I stupid? $30. Okay. It's not a very good capture if it doesn't change every time. Okay, cool. So I can see doing this that I've got my first kind of thing that like piece of functionality I can start to play around with. So if I then go back into my burp and have a look at the proxy, I can see what's actually being called. And first thing I see, API. If I see the word API, I am always thinking, okay, we're going to have to test cross-user access. We're going to look at being able to do functionality when we're not logged in. And even here, you see how this starts with the word REST? That means a RESTful API. So that, again, will be a sign of an API existing. And if you look at this structure, this is very RESTful in structure. So if you've never seen a RESTful API before, they have this really strong style to them, and they're very structured. You just show me the requests. Is there a good? I'm sure there's a good image that shows them all. Oh, maybe it was roots instead. Okay, yeah, this. So, this is how RESTful APIs usually. Look, I'm going to open this in a new tab. Okay. Wow, that's very small. Oh my god, my computer is really laggy with streaming today. Okay, so these are the API endpoints that will always exist in any RESTful API. So this first one is the index of a specific resource, in this case dogs. If we want to see a single dog, we would have dog / and then the ID. Now notice here we've got REST, then we've got the products and then reviews. If I put that into a repeater here and press send, we can see whatever the results. We might think, okay, what if we don't specify the ID here? What's this going to show us? Well, in this case, a bunch of error messages. That's a GET request. See if we add the one. So this is interesting. So usually what we'd expect is REST/products1 to show us like some information about the product, or this like index resource names, which will show all the products. What I might just try next is going in here, going to the home page and seeing how it's getting it. Okay, yeah. So that's what we're missing. We need the like search to add to it. Let's see what else we've got here. So we've got continue code, we've got capture, we've got quantities, we've got some JavaScript. So I don't tend to look at JavaScript too much. Most of it is visual, and I'm not great at reading JavaScript. Though here I can see this stuff like post messages. I usually, on a real target, wouldn't do it. Cool, I'm going to answer questions. Do you recommend learning one bug at a time, let's say IDOR, and be really good at it first before learning other bug types? No. I recommend learning a bunch of different bugs. So you can say, I see whatever, an API. So I'm going to test for this type of vulnerability, this type of vulnerability, this type of vulnerability. I see a GraphQL API, so I'm going to test for, graph things like introspection being switched on. You don't have, and I think what a lot of people and how they make this mistake is because they only learn cross-site scripting, they just sit there and copy and paste script alert 1 into every single request that they send. They never have a situation where they are not doing that. They will just paste, doesn't work. Okay, next target, paste, does it work? Next target. You may well have found a bug if you had spent more than 5 minutes copying and pasting script alert 1 into the application, actually played around with it. I've found that the most common bugs I find are business logic errors, where some functionality in the website allows you to have some kind of security outcome. So for example, being able to delete somebody else's account shouldn't delete everything they've ever posted, it should archive it or something like that. One book I recommend for bug bounty. So the one book I recommend more than anything else is The Tangled Web. So I think it's really important, if you want to get into web application hacking and bug bounty, that you learn the fundamentals first. Because if you just get caught up looking for, get caught up looking for XSS, you don't even know how a website works and what causes XSS issues. You may well just not understand it if you've got an error and how to fix that error. So the reason why I like the Tangled Web, I'll wait for it to load up. What is your setup? MacBook? Yeah, I have a 2019 MacBook Pro that I bought with my first bounty money, or the first few bounties. Which note-taking app? Obsidian. I have moved away from using Notion now, because it's getting too complicated, and I really like the feature in Obsidian where you can have a little graph of your notes. I made a new vault just for this, but usually I would have hundreds of little notes and I can see how they're all connected. Especially useful if you're hacking the same technology over different clients. So let's say you're hacking GraphQL, you can have, all of the GraphQL bugs, and then you can find it by technology rather than by target. Is programming necessary? No, however, I think programming is a huge help. Genuinely, it is such a useful skill to have anyway. But if you want to get into bug bounty, it really helps teach you how websites are made. Oh man, I cannot get this. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, the reason why I really like this book in particular is, let's say you're reading about a URL. It goes over why stuff works the way it does. It goes into, this here. You can see every single part of the URI and just see, okay, the scheme, the protocol name. And if you've seen Inti's talk about his stuff with URIs, this is huge for finding bugs. What's my methodology on JavaScript hacking? Do you go into JavaScript files? I really recommend Tom Nom Nom's recent talk at B-Sides Leads. I can't remember what it's called now. Tom Nom B-Sides Leads. Was it Darby Treasure in those files or something? I think it's there's gold in them files. There. I can't speak. But he talks about how to do it, and he also released a tool that can do it. I personally, I don't even look at JavaScript. I remember when I was a student and I used to compete in a lot of hackathons, I would always be left writing all the JavaScript, and that honestly makes me loathe JavaScript now. I do not like looking into it. It's okay, computer, you can do it. Okay, paste. Okay, this talk. Thank you, David. I really appreciate that. How much was your first bounty? So my first bounty was $500. My second one was $500. I got paid it at once because they were kind of related bugs. I got paid a single bounty of 1,000. It felt pretty good. I was very happy at the time. I was not expecting to find a bounty. I get a bounty for it. Nowadays, my most recent bounty was for $2,000. And that was on a high severity issue that I probably could, now I'm thinking about it, have gotten a CVE for, but I just decided not to pursue it. You can buy this book. It's just called The Tangled Web. If you're a student, this is likely something your like university or school library might already have. But it's often in things like Humble Bundles, where you pay what you want for a bunch of like no starch press books. So really keep an eye on like Twitter and Humble Bundle books. That tends to be on there quite a lot. I am not going to be at B-Sides Ahmedabad this year, unfortunately. I'm not able to travel. So 1 API point, 3 vulns. How many bugs is it? It depends. If it's a single fix, it's a bug. Like all 3 vulnerabilities are the same bug. If it is in different places or it has multiple fixes, it should be multiple bugs. And when I worked at BugCrowd dealing with this, I often told clients, single fix, 1 bug. If you've got to fix it in multiple places, you should pay out multiple bounties. I am just trying to get the link for the Tangled Web. Sorry, my computer is very slow today. I don't think it likes streaming. Right. It's a note for myself to get a better computer for streaming. Because usually I'm like making YouTube videos, I just let the video render while I just go off and do something else. Okay, this is the book. I know a bunch of vulnerabilities. Tried to look for them in VDP, still no luck. What do you think could be the reason? It depends. So which bugs are you looking for? Like, if you could name the top 3 you look for, what are they? Oh, no, it's okay. I don't want super chats on. You guys don't need to pay me money. It's fine. Trust me, this stream is sponsored by BugCrowd. They've paid for my time, so you don't have to. It's completely, like, don't worry about it. Yeah, I need to upgrade to an M1 or an M2 Mac, to be honest. It is starting to show its age, but I'm a bit... I just don't like spending that much money. It makes me feel, like, worried. Because I'm like, how many bugs is that? Okay. So, let's go back to things. Oh. I solved a challenge of error handling when I was messing with the API. So, error handling. Is this really a vulnerability? A lot of clients will say error handling on its own is not a vulnerability unless something is... coming up as like something actually sensitive in there. Now, while you shouldn't have an error available, I will say that it is very dependent on the client whether or not they'll actually do that and like accept a bug. If there's nothing like that's obviously, you know, here's a database name, here's the exact technology we're using. But I have found, like in a real client, I did find a vulnerability like this. So I was hacking on a target and I caused an error and they were using Java. So it was just basically a Java error. But I was able to narrow down the libraries they were using from that error because their website had like other like features on it. I've actually talked about this in a talk before, but this is the 2K bug that I got money for. So it was a GraphQL API endpoint, and it was using multi-part forms to encode some of the GraphQL. And this is really weird. I have not seen this on literally any other target but this particular one. And when I was doing it, I was like, oh, that's weird. I wonder what that is. Anyway, because I got a Java error, I was able to figure out exactly what implementation of GraphQL they were using. I was able to find all of the libraries that it used, and I found a bug in one of those libraries that then affected the client. And because it's the type of client it was, they paid it even though it wasn't directly on them, and it was like a library of a library. So that I did find because it was an error message. Any advice or resources for testing GraphQL? I've made some GraphQL hacking videos about it, but I would say my main advice for hacking GraphQL is just do access control testing. Access control testing is kind of the thing you find on any API. Any API issue, it's going to have access control issues. It's going to have idles, it's going to have cross-tenancy, it's going to have cross-user, it's going to have permissions that you can put in weird states where you give your user view permissions so they shouldn't have edit permissions. If you look for any bug, like at all, that is the one I would look for because they are on almost every client. Now, if you are testing for them and you're struggling, my recommendation would be to look for lesser used functionality. So if you're testing an email client, you shouldn't be looking at sending and receiving emails. There's no point. It's been tested constantly. You need to find that little used functionality, that stuff that really nobody else can or is looking for because they're too busy focused on stuff. I have found vulnerabilities in the main applications of public programs because I've just dived into like random functionality. You know, think about Zoom. You can make meetings, you can invite people to meetings. Okay, but did you also know that you could have Zoom whiteboards? And that is a functionality that Zoom doesn't necessarily advertise really heavily. Or you can have Zoom chat, where you can invite your team, kind of like an enterprise thing like Slack, right? That's the kind of thing you want to be looking at. You want to be looking at that lesser used functionality wherever you can. How to chain lower level vulnerability into higher impact. This is so dependent on the bug that you find, but primarily the very first crit I always see, and the most common crit, is being able to take over an account. So if you can think about how, let's say you have the ability to access somebody else's resources, can you in some way edit their account, edit permission levels, invite yourself as a member on their account? Think about how you would get access to the admin, or just even another user that is another victim. By far, that is the most common crit I see. And that's even when I worked at BugCrowd as well, when I was looking at other people's crits. Is that and Amazon AWS tokens. AWS tokens are everywhere. A lot of tutorials and books will say to look for something interesting or something that sticks out for you. But what are those keywords that you should be looking for? This is a really good question. And this is one of the most important things, and the kind of most frustrating things, like bug bounty hunting or web application security in general. You, as a hacker, learn intuition. When I look at a client, there are things that just jump out at me. When I look at like accounts or authorization or like how people log in, right, or how they're authenticating to an API, there are things in that to me are just like, oh, I wonder how that works, or oh, that's a bit weird, I've not seen another client do that. The only way you can get better at that is experience, and experience on real targets, not just CTF websites. I'll switch over to hacking a real target in a few minutes, and I'll show you what I mean. But fundamentally, what you're looking for is things like signs of bugs. So if you're looking at SQL injection, there's two potential routes, right? There's the SQL injection where you can log into somebody else's account, and there's the SQL injection when you can enumerate the database on like SQL map. Those fundamentally have different signs. For any SQL injection, you're looking for an older application. You're looking for an application that maybe doesn't use modern frameworks. Maybe it doesn't use something like Node, JavaScript, React, also JavaScript. Maybe it's using PHP. So it's learning the signs of bugs. Same with XSS, right? Like, the easy way to know when XSS exists somewhere is by pasting the payload in a bunch of times and seeing where the payload is reflected back onto the page. For things like API testing, you know you've got IDORs when you've got multiple users, you've got tenancy, so you've got like cloud software or like enterprise software. So all these little hints you will learn as you keep on developing as a hacker. Unfortunately, there is no way that people can download it to you. One thing I really recommend is when you start writing about bugs in your bugs in your notes, maybe you have SQL injection. Signs of SQL injection. So note down what the signs are, not using JS framework like Node or React. Tends to be older. If you can start to put together notes that have the sign or signs of specific, like have a bug and then what those signs are, this will get you better at developing your intuition. Best tool for subdomain enumeration, probably Amass, because it's free. Any resources and advice you will recommend or give to beginners in bug hunting? My number one piece of advice, just start hacking. You will learn so much if you just give it a go and try. A lot of people will tell you, go to a CTF, do this, do this, do this. Number one piece of advice I can give you, just have a go, experiment, see what you can do. Just torrented my copy of the Tangled Web. I'm sorry. I didn't write the book. So I completely understand. One of the great things I think about bug bounty hunting is that you really don't need to pay to get started with it. You don't need to buy a course. There's a bunch of free videos on the internet. There's a bunch of free CTFs. There's a bunch of free talks on YouTube done by some of the best hackers in the world that you do not need to pay for. And I think that it is a responsibility for those of us who are doing bug bounty hunting, like for example me, where I'm teaching you how to do it, that I don't offer you a course, that you can learn it completely for free on YouTube. How to approach a target to select an API for testing bugs on the BugCrowd platform. I'm going to answer that in a second. How much time does it take you to find bugs? It completely depends. The shortest time it's taken me to find a bug was literally 5 minutes. I found it as I was literally doing my first exploration. Other bugs I've spent hours on, right? Like this one bug that I was working on the other days, I spent 8-9 hours just for a single bug, only to then argue with the triager about whether or not it was a legitimate bug. How can a beginner choose a good program? I'm going to talk about that in a second. Content creators I recommend. Myself, Nahamsek, he's doing fantastic content at the moment. I really like for I think Rana Kali has some great like CTF going over the Portswigger Labs. Portswigger Labs for learning specific bugs is an incredible free resource. It is my number one recommended resource. It has some GraphQL Labs as well. They've got put up like last week or the week before or something. Try HackMe if you're newer. Really like that. I think it does a really great job in kind of guiding you, but it's really important to not get caught up in it. Asset Note has some fantastic write-ups of really technical security bugs. Has hacking become more profitable in the last 5 years, or is it becoming less profitable? Time versus payoff. I don't know if hacking, and specifically bug bounty hunting, ever 100% the maths works out. I very much do not do this as my full-time job. I have a regular full-time job, and I will always have a regular full-time job. Not because I don't think I could earn a similar salary. I probably could, based on the bugs that I found and how low my salary is as a lecturer. But I have like a partner, I have bills, and a house that needs to be paid for, and it is a little bit demotivating because you can spend months working on a bug and not find anything, or you can spend 5 minutes on something and earn $5,000. Like, there is a certain amount of how do you see that payoff. I mean, you've got people, the critical thinking, the bug bounty podcast. That's really good as well. If you haven't subscribed to that, fantastic podcast. I'm not sure it's become more profitable or less profitable. I think if you are in a part of the world where salaries are a lot lower, it is very easy for it to be profitable. It's much harder, especially as you get a bit older and you have a lot more responsibilities financially, for it to work out. I haven't noticed any difference from when I first started hacking in 2019 to now, that any target is like more harder now than it used to be. I can still find bugs, so. Or would you give up on XSS if if the content security policy or cross forgeries are enabled? I would probably give up on XSS if I had to write a payload. I am really bad at XSS. I really can't stress. I found one XSS in my entire, ever. It is not a vulnerability I hunt for often at all. I would say, though, when I worked at BugCrowd and I was actually doing, triaging, often people would write a XSS that could take over an account. And for those, we would insist that a customer paid out at the P1 level, because it is showing to be a critical severity. Can we randomly check on any website, or should it only be from BugCrowd? You should only be hacking on websites you have permission to hack. My recommendation is get a BugCrowd account and start hacking on BugCrowd. Should I learn all the bugs, then hunt, or just start hunting? I would say you want to have a cyclical process of learn about a bug, try and find it, change your notes, and do it like that. That's how pros learn. No pro is like, I haven't learned enough bugs yet to go hacking. It's a mixed kind of methodical, try this, does it work? No, keep on going, learn something else. And I'm always learning, right? I just said I'm terrible at cross-site scripting. I could very much, if I cared, do more cross-site scripting, but I don't. I don't want to do cross-site scripting. I find it a boring bug. Yes, it was a DOM XSS. That was my first ever bug. My first ever XSS bug was a DOM XSS. And I didn't even know what a DOM XSS was at the time I submitted it either. I was vaguely aware of what it means. Yes, let's go look at a live target, because this is already... It's already an hour in. Let's look at a real target. So, I'm going to quickly go over what I look for in a program first, and then I'll show you how I actually approach a bug. The notepad here, this is Obsidian. Highly recommend it. It is obsidian.md. Make sure. Alright. Bug crowd. Oh, where's my phone? You know, I do sometimes wish that I didn't have to have 2FA on for every single website I visit. It's so annoying. What vulnerability do I look for first? Access control, always. Okay, so this is what bug crowd looks like. You can see I do not have, this is a clean account. I'm not going to accidentally reveal anything on stream. So if you're not familiar with how bug crowd works, I'm going to very quickly go over how the tabs will work and some stuff about like bug crowd specifically in case you hack more on HackerOne or Integrity. So main thing to note about bug crowd is they have these joinable and waitlisted programs. So a waitlisted program is something that you can sign up for. True. There you go, just show them everything. See if I can find one. Some of these are also vulnerability disclosure programs. In case you didn't know, on bug crowd, you do not get points for VDP bugs. So let me see if I can find a waitlisted program. It's in Discovery. Okay, so you see these ones? These where it doesn't say like or necessarily like what the customer is, where it's like large sports and gaming. This is a joinable program, so you can essentially sign up to it, and you can also get waitlisted where you basically go on a waitlist. Do dupes give any points? Yes. No? I don't think they do. I think it depends on what the priority level is. And you can see here, right, like I could join the program here if I wanted to. So how do I find a program that I actually want to hack on? So I look for brands that I already know and that are quite technical. So for example, looking here, you know, I don't recognize Alio, I don't recognize Blackbound, I don't recognize Lifter. I recognize HostGator, I recognize the United States International Trade Commission because I used to hack them on HackerOne. I know Okta, right? So I can start to look for brands that I know well. Now, obviously, as someone who's quite into the hacking community, I am kind of aware of bad programs and kind of the programs that have a poor reputation in the community. So I tend to ignore those. My biggest piece of advice is if you're a new hacker, get yourself on things like Discord, on Twitter, on Slack, Telegram. Start to chat with other hackers, because you see, if I go to like OpenAI, there's actually a code on some bug crowd programs that actually gives you like a code that represents that program, for example. And a lot of people will, in private chats, actually say, hey, don't trust this triage team. Don't trust the client, or I got underpaid for this. And obviously, people do tend to exaggerate. People do tend to exaggerate on and about certain things. So you can't trust it like 100%, but there are definitely people like my friends who, if they tell me I don't hack on whoever, like I don't hack on Bob's Burgers because they underpaid me one time, I just simply don't hack on them. So next thing I look for, actually there's a good question here. If BugCrowd doesn't give points on VDP, how can we get private invites? I don't think on BugCrowd you need private invites as much as you kind of need them on HackerOne. There are a lot of BugCrowd programs that in my experience haven't been completely picked dry. So I will say that, but also BugCrowd's like invite system is primarily focused on money and bounties, but they also look for people who are up and coming as well. So I recommend just hacking and you will get private invites. What Discords do I recommend joining? Bounty Hunters. I've posted it on Twitter before. That's a great Discord channel. BugCrowd has a Discord channel, as Does Hacker 101 has one. Integrity has one. Let's see if I can find the Bounty Hunters link for you. So, yeah, I can't find the link. I will post it probably. Oh, Bounty. People you follow. People. There we go. Oh, come on, Twitter, you can do it. Just stop crashing, please. You know what? I think it is just Bounty Hunters. I don't know if anyone else has noticed how laggy Twitter has got since it rebranded to X like a few days ago. I have so many problems like finding like tweets and what people are talking about now. It's really frustrating. They broke lists last week for a bit. Is BugCrowd in Discord invite only? I feel like I've seen them post it. Maybe not. Come on. Okay, yeah. So this is the Discord I recommend. Okay, so when I'm actually looking at a brand that I'm recognized with, I will look at the known issues, the vulnerabilities reporting, and these statistics. So one thing that's really important to me is a fairly quick triage. Like I don't expect a triage to be instantly, but if it's a P1 or higher vulnerability, and if you're not aware, BugCrowd goes from P1 to P4. P1 is critical, P4 is low severity, and P5 is like non/won't fix. So I look at this. So validation within, I want to know how quick this team is actually like responding to hackers. And I'm also looking at the vulnerabilities rewarded, average payout, and then the bounties below. So I'll show you why. So the average payout is $1,000 and there's been 50 vulnerabilities. I will look down here and see what $1,000, what kind of bugs it would get you. So for me, I usually hack APIs. So I'm looking at the API here and saying, well, P2 is $1,000. And yeah, there could easily be a bunch of P4s down here and a bunch of P1s around here, but primarily you're looking at probably mainly P1s and P3s. That's good. If it was really low, like let's say it was $200, it's probably going to be more P4s. Now, on any bounty range, you can kind of assume that it will pay out at the lowest rate. So for a P2, you're more likely to get $1,000 than you are to get $2,000 for any P2 issue. Again, for P1s, you can expect your P1 would get you $2,000 than the 6.5k. So I'm looking at these and I'm seeing, okay, what kind of are people potentially looking at? And to me, this says that mainly I would be looking, if I was actually going to hack this, at P2 and P3 issues that are actually being paid. Now, the other thing that's quite useful on BugCrowd specifically are these known issues. These are the total counts of vulnerabilities that the client is going to fix. There are 13 unique issues, and 37 is all of them. So there are 13 unique, but there are 3 dupes for every one actual vulnerability. So you can interpret that to mean a few things. It might be that this is a fairly new program and they don't have or know where they're pulling, like how they're actually going to deal with bugs in the future. It can also mean that the target is pretty secure. If we have a look, like 50 vulnerabilities have been rewarded, there are 37 duplicates. A bit weird, right? The numbers don't quite add up. Some programs will have CrowdStream turned on, and CrowdStream is basically the BugCrowd version of Hacktivity, and you can see what they've actually accepted. So Tess here, who's an absolute machine, literally in any bug bounty program he will find bugs, has got a P4 rewarded. Again, this is really, really, really helpful if you're hacking on BugCrowd specifically, because you can start to kind of see what people are actually getting paid out for. So it's mainly P4s. So P4, P3, 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 P4, P4, P3. So P3 equal medium, P4 equals low. Oh, audio is dropping. Sorry. Hopefully it's not too bad. Let me try and refresh the page. Okay, hopefully that's a bit better. Is a request not having TLS secure cookie on them, is that a bug? BugCrowd VRT has a P4. If BugCrowd's VRT has like a priority level on it, it is a security issue. Oh, no, it's not. No audio issues. Okay, well, I don't know. No, YouTube, I don't want to add ads to the stream because that's annoying. So I would probably approach this and think, well, there's not a lot of P3s that have been rewarded on this program. I should look for P3s specifically. Again, Hall of Fame can tell you a bit about what has actually been submitted. BugCrowd's point system, this 3 is going to be a duplicate issue. Most of the 5s are duplicates. Nagley and Tess are doing the best. They have multiple submissions on this. So this is sort of some of the statistics I go with. So it's speak to people, get involved in the community, and hear things through the grapevine about what are bad programs, what are good programs. And certainly for bad programs, people will warn you of them very, very quickly. I might take a look at which researchers are doing quite well, because somebody like who hacks in the same way as I do, I'm going to struggle to find vulnerabilities if they are someone who hacks very similar to the way that I hack. And again, you find this out mainly through the community. What bugs should I learn first as a beginner? Cross-site scripting, information disclosure, access control issues are probably the top 3 I'd learn first. I test manually with just burp usually. Again, it can take a while for me to decide on a program I actually want to hack, and that's kind of why I prefer the live hacking events, because I just jump into any program. At the moment, I'm spending a lot of time on Zoom because I hacked them at a HackerOne event. So I think on bug crowd, something like Walmart is probably not a good choice because it's a huge program and a lot of people submit to it. So it's probably being picked dry of anything. So that's something I wouldn't hack on. You take so little time to find bugs. So which tool do you use most for recon? I don't do reconnaissance. I literally just focus on pressing buttons. New to bug crowd, they don't give any points in VDP. No, they don't. They give no points in VDP. There's not a way to game the system like there is in HackerOne, though I will say on bug crowd, once you start to find bugs, you will get private invites the same as HackerOne. How long do you spend on recon before manually checking the target? I promise you, I don't do any reconnaissance. I press buttons as my reconnaissance. XSS, access control, information disclosure were the 3 vulnerabilities. I'm not going to go into individual programs that may or may not have poor or really good reviews from hackers. That's something that gets shared privately with you, not necessarily something that's public. How do you deal with large enterprise applications such as Salesforce? By being afraid of Salesforce. Salesforce is a really interesting program because it's a huge application. And it is scary. First thing I try and do is use an application normally. So let's take a look. Let me try and hack now. I'm going to get the bug crowd program up because I asked Sajib, who is the I think it's just bug crowd, isn't it? Right? Or is it programs bug crowd? No, it's just bug crowd. Okay, so Sajib has let me do this. I spoke to bug crowd. They have said this is fine. I cannot show you any real vulnerabilities. I can show you my approach to hacking. So let me look at the bug crowd program. It's an active program-ish. It's 4 days for validation. It's not super long. It doesn't seem abandoned by the client. There are 500 vulnerabilities. There's 200 unique, and there's 600 duplicates of those unique. So of the total, for every 1 vulnerability, there are 3 duplicates. That is fairly good odds for you to not find a duplicate. Do you still use Obsidian? Yes, I still use Obsidian as my main note-taking app. I should probably make a new video on it. Should beginners and intermediates avoid bug hunting? It depends on what you're trying to learn. If introspection is not allowed, what do I do? Okay, so my first thing I do when I start on any target is just play around with it and try and learn how it works. So I'm looking here on bug crowd. I'm actually just going to put this up into a tab that's actually going to burp. So first thing I would do is just have a play around of how bug crowd works, how it goes. So I might look here and say, okay, let's look at the Hall of Fame. And I'll begin to have a think about how this functionality might just work in practice. So if I'm looking at the Hall of Fame and it's got HX01 has 269 points. Why? And how is it calculating that? Is that something that's done on the client side or the server side? Is it something where it's being calculated and just shown? Is it something in an API, etc.? That's the kind of thing I'll start to ask myself. And I'll have a look at the requests. And again, I'm not necessarily trying to hack here. I'm just trying to understand how Bugcrowd works, essentially. This is not running tools. I don't run a mass. I don't run look for random subdomains. I don't look directory brute forcing. I don't do anything. Just the first hour, 2 hours, maybe even 3 or 4 hours on a target should just be you looking with your eyeballs and understanding how that website works. What is the flow of data? What happens when you click on the button called submit report? What happens when you log in? What happens when you create an account? What happens when, you put in a first name and a last name, right? I might go into here and go, I'll put in you're not going to generate a password for me? Oh, I think that's just copying something else, isn't it? Come on. So I'll make an account and I'll just see what I can press. Now, if I already have an account on something, I will not use the same account I use normally for hacking. And that's because I don't want it to get banned. And it's something that I actually use, like my actual Bugcrowd account, where I've got things like payments and bugs and stuff like that. So I always make a new account when I'm hacking. Often you can find that if you use things like Bugcrowd Ninja, so you can do your Bugcrowd username at bugcrowdninja.com, it may give you access to like more functionality. So I'm just gonna copy this. Come on. Is the Hacking API book by Corey Ball good for bug bounty? If you know anything about APIs, no. I think it's probably a bit too kind of beginner for a lot of my audience. Though if you think you just want to learn more about kind of how APIs work from the start, I think it's really helpful. I also recommend a book called Building Microservices, which is a really good book designed for developers. I just got this horrible feeling that I'm going to have to reset my password for this. Come on. Whoops. Yeah, I'm going to have to reset my password. I've forgotten it in the past 5 minutes. Often things like forgetting my password doesn't really tend to bother me too much on this, because I'll see things like the reset password in here. And when I'm done my initial like look over of an application, I will often then try and match up functionality to specific requests. And again, try and understand, oh my God, come on. I'll start to link up requests like how things like the flow of data works. Things like what happens when you reset your password, right? Like, how is it generating tokens? And I start to have those thinking about like how this actually works in practice. Come on, come on, come on, come on. The extension that's adding all the colors is called PwnFox. Can you make a workflow of how you research for bounties? Honestly, I think I'd make quite a good video. So yeah, I will probably. Okay, right. Come on. This is so slow today. Is it Twitter that's doing it? Okay, change my password. Go into here. So I'll be questioning, you know, I can see this reset password token. I'll go in here and I'll actually look and see if I can see this any earlier. To see whether or not I can reset the password. Come on. So I'll see whether or not I can generate that in some way. And start to think, okay, right, like, how is this token actually appearing? Please just go over there. Are most bugs the same as Portswigger? Yes, but they're significantly harder to find because they're in applications where you are not designed, like, it's not meant for you to be hacking it. Will you find this tutorial at your page? Yeah, this is recorded. Do I use any kind of VPS? No, I don't do VPS. I don't do VPNs either. You just simply don't need to. It's just unnecessary for the kind of hacking. Like, I'm not actually targeting a real, like, I'm not actually a malicious user, right? Like, I don't really mind if their logs catch me. The other thing is that some clients will force you to use a VPN. It can go one of two ways. You can end up with less bugs because there's a VPN and it makes for an annoying testing experience. You can also get a lot more because people like me are like, oh, I don't want to open a VPN. I want to just start hacking, and I just completely ignore it. Show more. Maybe I say APIs mobile. Oh, actually, I should worth saying this. Desktop application testing is actually much easier than you think it is. And I really do recommend looking at some of those programs because basically nobody touches them. And it's actually fairly easy to hack on them as well. Because all you need to do is traffic all of your traffic through Burp, and that's it. So cool. I've started to make a... I made my account now, and I'm looking at this. There is a lot of mess here. So the first thing I do is I'm going to adjust the scope manually. So because I'm a bit lazy... where is the scope now? It's in project, isn't it? Yeah. I'll click on the use advanced scope control. I'll go back to here, find like my Google thing, my bug crowd thing, add to scope, and then I'll go back in here, and then I'll go edit, and I'll just remove the file, and this will like set up most of the show only in scope items really easily, because now it's just showing me anything that ends in bug crowd, and then I will periodically have a look at that and make sure that it's actually getting the right traffic, which is really helpful on bug crowd specifically, because there isn't the same setup as HackerOne has. Okay, cool. So number one thing I'm seeing here is that I just went through an onboarding process where I ticked a bunch of different documents. Now, I went through some steps here. So the first thing I'm looking at is, okay, why did I go through those steps? And is it important, the order of those steps? So it happens a lot more in e-commerce, where you have add to your cart, view your entire cart, say I want to check out, put your credit card information in, put your address in, and then press go. Whether or not you can start to skip some of those steps, like have nothing in your basket. So I'll have a look at that, because that is something, any kind of complex stages are rife for business logic errors. So looking at this, you can see that we've got a kind of JSON here that says current step equals 2. And we can see that it's returning current step is 2. So I'm going to repeat this and see what happens if I send it now. Now, this is the current step 2. I'm probably not on a step anymore. I've probably gone past the step. If I have a look at this patch up here, it says current step is 4. So I'll go in here and put in 2 again. And you can see how I get a redirection here. This is a sign that I can't necessarily like skip through steps in the process, because I'm just not able to, like this is saying you are being redirected, but what we wanted to see was the, and then this is just showing me the homepage now, and I can tell because it's just a bunch of HTML. So this is not allowing me to get to this one, right? Where I was like onboarding with the user ID, the current step, the skill level, the role. Now, when you're testing, especially for things like business logic errors, you always want to be thinking, what kind of issues is this going to be? Like, what is the security implication of this, right? So it's like, what bad could go wrong? If we're looking at onboarding, going to step 2 isn't a bug. Like, being on step 4, but then going back to step 2 on your own account, there's no security impact there. And this is where things like intuition come in quite a lot, and why the best hackers are people who do have like a very strong intuition, is going, well, I can set my current step, but how does it know which account I'm logged in as? You can see here it's got a user ID. User ID, current step, skill level. Current step, skill level. Can I go into this and put in a random user ID of another person? And start to go, okay, if I click on this, ascend to repeater, notice that this current step looks like this current step, this skill level looks like this skill level, this role looks like this role. Can I include in here a user ID? Again, it's just redirecting me, so probably not. But this is when people say, look for stuff that's weird. That's the kind of thing they mean. They mean, look at what's in front of you and think to yourself, how does it know who's logged in as? How does it know that's me that it's logged in as? How do you know that I'm on this current step? Why is that important? Start to build this kind of understanding of the application. The book I recommended was called Building Microservices, but that's more about how developers build them rather than how to hack them. the hacking API book for people who are following API hacking already is probably a bit too beginner. You probably want to be listening to conferences like API Secure more to learn API hacking. Just show how you're able to use Burp Suite as well in the background. Burp Suite settings in another tab. So I think you mean, so if I've not got like this account where I've not got like a color up here, this doesn't get trafficked through Burp. So if I go to proxy here, it's not in there. But if I was to go in here and then click on the red tab here, and then I go to Bug Crowd, you can see this appears in Burp as red because it's a red tab. If you are testing multiple accounts, so things like iDoors where you need 2 accounts open, this is unbelievably helpful. Like, this is the game changer. It's a super useful way to log into 2 accounts at once. And you can say, go into, if I go back to here, you can go here, center repeater, and then you can grab, like, if there was a token or a cookie, you can grab that from here. Okay, cool. So, again, the first hour or so of these, of like hacking, you just want to explore things. You want to click on all the buttons. You want to get an idea of how an application works, how you're supposed to do it, but also what your client is actually going to care about. Like, a company like BugCrowd is going to be very, very cautious around you being able to access other people's bugs. That's going to be a major concern for BugCrowd. So if you can do that, no matter how you're doing it, it's likely going to be a crit. So, and here's another example, right? Like, we have someone's name disclosed here. For some clients, let's say it's the FBI, they're gonna care about that a lot, like people's real names. Other companies, not so much. They'd probably be on LinkedIn, right? They can see it. 1 second. I'll be back in just a moment here. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. I am now back. One sec, let me just put my screen back up. There we go. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, so the people who work for an organization aren't necessarily public or private. So if you're hacking something like the FBI and you've got a list of first names and last names, huge, super impactful, super scary. People who work at BugCrowd is probably on LinkedIn, so it's not a huge deal. Do you think it's important to develop an API before you go into security? I think it's a huge help. I think programming and building a website is really, really good for just understanding how developers build stuff and the kind of mistakes they make when they do so. So the actual, like, technology wise, not so important. Having that kind of developer brain helps a lot. Yes, this will be on YouTube. You can watch the playback. Is PwnFox a replacement of Foxy Proxy? Yes. So basically, it's a burp add-on here that you can that you can turn on things like proxying only container tabs, add container headers. So it basically combines the Firefox containers with Foxy Proxy. So if I was to get a green site up here and I accessed BugCrowd, it will appear as green in here, which is really helpful when you start to do like cross organizational stuff. So yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do and how you like to hack. But if you ever use more than one account, it's like a must for, like, I've completely changed the way I hack, and it's already found me like 2 vulnerabilities just because I can see which account I'm logged into. The first time I saw you was on Instagram Reel, but I watched your videos for 2 years ago. Oh, thank you. It's nice that people still watch the older videos. I often question to myself whether or not I should remake the older videos because they're still relevant, but also I've learned a lot more about bug bounty hunting in 2 years. I originally did it as kind of like a come along with me as my journey as I learn this, and now I know a lot more about bug hunting. Yeah, I'm not sure if I should remake them or not. On BugCrowd, OpenAI is asking anyone who finds a bug to fill out a form on their site first before BugCrowd. Is this normal? I wouldn't say it's normal, but some clients will want you to kind of jump through more hoops just to make sure it's something that their security team needs to see, rather than a like general programming, like this isn't a security issue, it's just a regular bug. In case I need assistance, how can I chat with you? Best thing is probably to send me a like a tweet and be like @InsiderPhD and then your question. I like people to ask questions publicly because other people can learn from the answer, and if it is something that does require me to like go in and like, let's say you're working on a real target and you've got a real website in front of you, I will DM you. But I like people to ask questions in public. What is your advice on how to learn how to hack? Books, courses? Okay. Step 1, and probably the most important step. Become part of the community. Start to make hacker friends. Start to join Discords, Slacks, Telegrams, Twitter. I'm sorry, I don't always see all the tweets because Twitter also decides some people I don't need to see their tweets, or if it's overnight in the UK, sometimes I miss it because I don't see it before I wake up. Just send me another tweet though. It's totally fine. You won't annoy me by sending me multiple tweets. Sorry. Most important thing is to get involved in the community, whether that is something online where you can be friends with anyone all over the world, or if it's like getting involved with your local technology groups. being part of the community is so helpful, because you can have somebody to bounce ideas off of, you have people you can hack with, and you have people who can constantly tell you if you misunderstand how a vulnerability works. I do not recommend spending any money on learning how to hack if you want to get into bug bounty hunting. You just don't need to. There are so many free resources out there. And I don't feel like courses and books really get updated that often to be worth it. The only book I recommend getting is The Tangled Web, because it goes into a lot of detail about how the internet works as like a piece of technology and how things like URLs come together. But you can also learn that just by Googling. First thing you want to do is start to understand what you don't know. So do you know what happens when you go to a website and access a page? How does the JavaScript get loaded? How does it know how you're logged in? How do cookies work? How does, if you're in the UK like me and you have like a cookie pop up, how does that work? How does it know you've pressed start or like, yes, I accept all the cookies? So start to work out where the bounds of your knowledge is at the moment. Don't worry too much if you don't 100% understand something you read, watch, listen to. Try and understand it the best you can and be okay with having little gaps in your knowledge. So maybe you're looking at cross-site scripting and you come across the idea of blind cross-site scripting, but you don't know what that is. Be okay that that's kind of an open question as you're learning, and then go, oh, okay, so blind cross-site scripting is when instead of the payload being activated by you as a victim during your testing, it's actually on like an admin control panel. That's all that means. You can start to fill in those little gaps of knowledge. And how do you do a blind cross-site scripting? Well, maybe you use something like XSS Hunter, and that then is another kind of gap in your knowledge that you need to fill. So you have to be okay with not knowing things and be okay with quick Google searches and then filling in the blanks later. So let's say you watch a video and you've learned, maybe it's about the Move It vulnerability. You've watched John Hammond's video, for example. You can go in there and go, I have no idea what this tool called Move It is, but that's fine. Just put it down as an open question, put it down as something you have to learn about, but try and understand as much as you can anyway. Try and get the most out of that resource. The best way, I think, to learn how to hack and to become even like an advanced hacker is YouTube videos, because they are by far, one, they get updated really quickly. Like, people will have YouTube videos coming out every week, so it will be up to date. A book, you cannot release a new book every week. Then my recommendation would be to listen to conferences. So conferences is where you really see like the state of the art, what the real big brain hacker is doing. And then start on real targets as well. Don't just say to yourself, I'll start hacking when I know X. You will never feel ready to start hacking. You will never have the day where you're like, I have amassed enough hacking knowledge. Now I am ready to hack. It's just not going to happen that way. You will always feel like a noob. I feel like a noob. You feel like a noob. We all feel like a noob. We all can realize, hang on, I am dumb as rocks. There is no way I can do this. Why am I so dumb? But it's fine, because it's you're always going to be learning. You're always going to find things you don't know about. Like, I mean, someone in the chat has literally just asked if I've got any SSRFs. No, I want to get an SSRF, but I don't know how to yet. And so that, for me, is something that I'm looking to develop in. I'm not going to stop hacking until I know I can get an SSRF. I'm just going to let it happen. Like, when I'm in that situation where I've got a request that is sending a separate request outwards to the internet, I'll go, okay, then I'll try that. Yeah, this is a really great idea. Like, the best way to learn languages, use it straight away. If you speak to people, if you interact with people, if you are engaging with the hacking community, you will learn so much more quickly. I mean, something that Jason Haddock says as well is to understand that underlying technology. That's really important. So you'll spend literally your first time hacking, understanding the target, and then Googling stuff. So I'll use an example of this burp request, right? So this is a get, and then it's to this random string. Now, I know that at the moment as a UUID, because I have the background knowledge that says that's what a UUID looks like. If you don't know what a UUID is, you would be searching this and figuring out, what is that? Can I enumerate that? And the answer would be no, you cannot predict the next UUID. It's not possible. So again, super useful to actually look at real targets and start experimenting. The first time you hack, are you going to find any bugs? Probably not. Like, you're probably not going to find anything. But if you have an open mind to being willing to not find anything and just understand how that website works more, you will find a bug the next time. How can I find friends to hack APIs with so I can be well versed? Twitter, LinkedIn, Telegram, Discord are where most hackers are, Slack as well. What is your opinion on desktop application hacking? How to start with it? Okay, literally not the same as any other hacking. All you do is you're just going to traffic all of your Wi-Fi to Burp the same way you set up Burp on your web browser. So I'm on a Mac. So you can go into your... I think it's details, isn't it? Oh no, it's here, isn't it? You can go into the network settings, go into proxies here, and then all you're going to do is turn on the web proxy and the HTTPS proxy and type in your burp information here and here. It's going to ask you, are you sure that you want to, like, this is not a signed certificate. You just press OK and that you trust it. Just do that in certain, like, Safari, and you can proxy all of your traffic through. The other thing is you can get tools that can do things like unpack binaries. And there are some write-ups that show you how to do this. I'm trying to remember what I saw this week. Is this the write-up I'm thinking of? I can't find it off the top of my head. I know I included it in a Bug Bites episode. It was probably last week or the week before. But that was like a write-up of how to analyze OS X packages. And essentially the app or whatever it is for Mac packages is just like a zip file that you can open and you can look through each one. Last month I found a critical information disclosure vulnerability after watching your information disclosure video. Thank you. I'm so glad you did. Hopefully you got a good bounty for it as well. Oh shoot, is it still on the wrong? Can you not see it? Oh, is it still showing the, like... Let me just check. One sec. Either way, you can essentially, in your network settings, proxy all of your traffic through Burp. The same way you can on like a web browser. You just need to change your proxy settings in your network settings on your computer. If you're using on like something like Synac, you might have a VPN, like a VPS essentially, or like a virtual desktop that you can use. There's also a really great write-up on, I think it's last week's Bug Bites or the week before, where somebody went over it. It's in the security research category on Bug Bites. And in case you don't know, Bug Bites is a newsletter that I write for another bug bounty platform. Now I can't see the chat at all. That's frustrating. Can I see it in here? So essentially, you can just access network traffic. I don't understand network things like DNS, reverse IP, ports and IPs. The stuff about networks, I understand what they mean, but I don't know how to work with it. Honestly, you don't have to necessarily know how to work with everything to do bug hunting. The first one, it's Bug Bites. You don't necessarily have to. What you need to know is enough that you can understand the kind of vulnerabilities that the web has, and for that you want to have a good knowledge of what is actually happening when your web browser connects to a website and how it actually shows you what's on your like what it should be. Like how does it know where the text goes? How does it know how to process the JavaScript, etc. As a beginner, is there any chance of getting a job in cybersecurity? Yes. It depends, though, how competitive it is in your country. There are so many first jobs in security. Your first job is very unlikely to be like web hacking as your first job, but certainly something like SOC analysis or less penetration testing, more like DevSecOps, tends to have more beginner options as a junior. If you can program and you're a developer already, that gives you a major advantage for beginner jobs in cybersecurity. There is also the route of things like sales or marketing, where if you've done like sales before, you get in with a sales cybersecurity company. Do I use ChatGPT or any other AI? Nope. I have a PhD in artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, and I do not use AI. I don't see it being that impactful in the way I hack. I mainly rely on my own intuition and stuff that I know already. What benefit does a website get for using different APIs from everything from getting user info to authentication to blog posts, etc.? It's a really good question. So it comes out of a major shift that the internet went through about 10 or so years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I don't know, no, 10 years ago, where microservices were a thing. So the idea is that if you're a startup and you're running like services, let's say you run a document delivery service, there is a point where you need to expand the amount of storage you have and the resources that you have. And it's really easy to do that when everything is separate, because if you've got, I don't know, the same number of users but twice as many documents, you can scale up the document storage part without necessarily scaling up the user authentication part, because you don't have to. It makes it as cheaper. And the other advantage from a developer perspective is that if you've got different teams, you can kind of give them an API and say, okay, this is your API now. This is your child, look after it. And for a developer, it can make it a lot easier to know the bounds of like where their job ends and where their job begins. I will say that microservices are not quite as popular as they used to be. A lot more we see like containerization and container surgery. Should we learn about mobile application hacking after a certain level of proficiency with web application testing, or we can learn that too alongside and expand our attack surface? I learned it alongside. It really wasn't that difficult. At the end of the day, it's all APIs. Like very rarely do you actually need to go into like the binaries of applications. You can just look at the APIs and just treat it like like a web application. I don't think you need to learn PHP or MySQL to make a small website to get better at bug bounty hunting. I think just build yourself a little mini website. Yeah, it's not my dog, it's next door's dog. But it's essentially pick an application like a website you know well. Let's say Reddit. Build Reddit yourself with a like MySQL, PHP, or React, or JavaScript, or whatever. Build that, and it will teach you so much about like how developers make stuff. I'm really sorry, everyone. I am going to have to leave the stream now and go have some dinner, but it's been great to sit and chat with everyone. Hopefully you all feel like you learned a lot and you got to see what my process is like a little bit. Hopefully I've answered tons of questions. If you do want to ask me more questions, do not worry about reaching out to me. You can go to my Twitter, and any questions, feel free to send an @ message with send an @ message to me. I am completely fine with answering any questions, and I really do hope you can all find your first bugs. Yeah, I'm sorry that this was more talking, less hacking. I'm learning a lot about how to stream as well. But don't worry, if you want to listen to hours of me hacking, you actually already can. I've got so many videos on YouTube. But it was great to speak to everyone. I think it's a bit weird to me sometimes that people really really watch my content. I often feel like nobody watches my videos still. But it blows my mind sometimes that there are real people behind all of the little usernames that I see. So it's great to sit and actually chat with you and answer some questions. And next time we